you know, fight over individual cards rather than a raw card count sort of deck where I feel Hymn to Torak is better. Scott Tompkins making the decision to go with Thoughtseizes.
Yeah, I talked with Tannen earlier, who was also playing a Bug Delver list, and said that hymns are great, you know, when you have them in their opening hand, but later in the game, not a card you want.
Also does
Decay and Thoughtseize.
Also does some amount of damage to your mana base. The Bug list is already strained pretty far, and double black is a hard thing to cobble together in a deck that often features Tropical Island as well. So some of it's mana base related. Alex Hahn, who's his opponent, his creature base, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Deathrite Shaman, 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Force of Will, 3 Hymn to Torak, 3 Liliana, 3 Thoughtseize, 4 Abrupt Decay, 4 Ponder, 3 Days, 3 Brainstorm. So playing Thoughtseize alongside Hymn to Torak.
So did I hear you right? Alex does not have True Name?
No True Name Nemesis in his list.
That could be the edge for Scott here. With 2 protection from you creatures.
Yeah. Although these Bug lists do have access, you know, of any color in Legacy, black is the one flushed with the most answers to True Name Nemesis. You can see minus effects like Golgari Charm, edicts like Liliana the Veil, alongside even Diabolic Edict or Innocent Blood at times. So True Name Nemesis, though powerful, not the best threat in the mirror match necessarily, because black gives you a lot of tools to fight over that card. Game 3 underway with Scott with a Creeping Tar Pit, and Alex with a turn 1 Delver of Secrets. Scott now mulling over a second turn. Pretty critical for him to kill Delver of Secrets if able.
Yep. Need an answer or a threat here after the tapped land turn 1. And he gets rid of it.
Disfigure well equipped for the job here. And I like the sequencing of spells here by Scott here, as he's aware that Daze is a threat that Alex could potentially have. So it's more critical for him to kill the Delver this turn. He leads off with the Disfigure. He doesn't mind necessarily if his Ponder gets dazed, but really critical for him to kill the Delver.
Yeah. Got to get the Delver off the table, especially when he doesn't have a threat himself.
Yeah, for decks with a lot of removal, it's funny how much life total ends up mattering, because Deathrite Shaman and the hits from Tarmogoyf are so big.
Yep.
You don't want to be taking hits for no reason.
And here's the hymn that you mentioned from Alex.
Almost always good in the opening hand. The bigger problem, as you mentioned, drawing hymns later in the game, generally pretty poor.
Having some die trouble here. Gets a land and a card he covered up.
True Name Nemesis appears to go to the graveyard for Scott.
Not a bad one to hit. There's only one left in the deck now.
See if Scott has any follow-up here.
A Deathrite Shaman.
Deathrite, one of the biggest incentives to play a list like this. You know, you're in the market for mana, you're in the market for dealing damage, gaining life in some matchups, attacking the graveyard. I feel like Bug Delver incorporates this deck better than any other deck in the format, really.
And plenty of fodder for it already at its disposal. Alex with his 3rd land, trying to decide what he wants to do here.
He's pondering. He's looking at another hymn here, so he might be able to back-to-back hymn Scott.
Just rip apart Scott's hand.
And Alex does decide to take the hymn. So I have to imagine, you know, this turn we're casting him, and then Alex is hoping to be able to sweep up Scott's leftovers with removal spells or his own threats.
Yep. Because once you disrupt their hand, if you don't have any threats, you know, they can top deck them just the same as you.
Yeah. So this is a pretty good opening for Alex, but still important for him to find removal spells or threats of his own. Fortunately for him, his deck is pretty much nothing but that, so
right.
It should not be too hard to find.
helps your odds when it's all removal and threats.
See Scott discard 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, and now Scott is living off the top of the deck starting on turn 4.
He's got a Deathrite Shaman.
And a Creeping Tar Pit. He has some stuff in play. You can see Creeping Tar Pit really critical in these attrition matchups because, you know, both players are so equipped to run each other out of resources that having something that's a land and a spell is really important. I think that if you were able to side into a package in the mirror match that was just all removal spells and man lands, you would have a pretty big edge.
Just a bunch of Creeping Tar Pits.
Treetop Villages, whatever.
Let's see what he drew here for the turn. Another land.
And Scott just going on the offensive.
Sending in the Squire and the Creeping Tar Pit. So Alex is going to brainstorm. Still digging for a threat.
He has found a pretty juicy brainstorm here, featuring both Deathrite Shaman and Tarmogoyf. I think at this stage of the game, Alex would prefer to find removal spells. He's a little under the gun here, and the Deathrite and Creeping Tar Pit are both good threats against blockers, but this is something of a start.
Yes. Do you have a fetch land in there as well? I thought I saw Verdant Catacombs. And he plays the Goyf.
Goyf alongside Deathrite Shaman. Land, for as much mana as Scott has at this point, land actually isn't a shabby draw for him at this turn, as it would allow him to both attack with his Screaming Tar Pit and activate his Deathrite Shaman.
And as you said, life being a factor in these grindy attrition wars, the Shaman is something that can really generate quite a bit of advantage there.
So we see the die on the table, Tarmogoyf a 4/5 right now. Land instant sorcery creature.
Scott's going to send in just the Tar Pit.
And we'll see if Scott has a land or simply says go.
Alex going to battle with his Tarmogoyf.
Looks like Alex is looking at a hand here, including Delver Secrets and Verdant Catacombs.
So we got the Delver.
Brainstorm also left over.
Brainstorm and Fetch Land, not too bad cards to have in your hand.
Especially now as he tries to set up this Delver. So you see Brainstorm here from Alex.
Set up the Delver and he can find removal spells and start to take advantage of that early advantage he got with the 2 hymns.
He's looking at Liliana the Veil. And even though it's not ideal to have Planeswalkers in the face of this Creeping Tar Pit, Alex is really starting to pull ahead in terms of pressure and overall resources in play. Scott using his turn to fight and finish off Liliana isn't very efficient right now because he's looking at so much damage on the way back.
And that's what Alex does with the Liliana. He gets rid of the Deathrite Shaman.
So Alex really capitalizing on those hymns, as you mentioned before. He's very effectively run Scott out of things to do and has a lot of pressure in play as well.
Right, because like you said, Scott's now in the unenviable position of sending the Tar Pit at the Lily or trying to find a deal with a Tarmogoyf and a Delver, which you have to assume is going to flip after the Brainstorm.
Yeah. And that Liliana in play is no small threat either.
All right, can take over a game on its own. See who he's sending the, yep, going after the Liliana.
So this is why I spoke to before. You know, you don't like having your Liliana just be run down by a man land, but given how far ahead Alex is on total resources and life total right now, or is about to be rather on life total, you're happy for Scott to spend his turn that way.
Right. So now there's a Planeswalker in the bin to bump up the Tarmogoyf. And the flip Delver.
And that attack knocks Scott all the way down. That's a 7-point attack, or an 8-point attack rather,
yep.
knocking Scott to 7. So he is facing lethal. And there's the concession. Alex Hahn wins 2-1. We didn't get to see much of the match, but usually these bug matchups are about running each other out of resources, and the last threat that sticks wins. And Alex definitely was able to leverage his 2 hymns, especially the second one critically removing all copies of Abrupt Decay out of Scott's hand, and then able to win with his arbitrary mashup of creatures. So Alex now moves to 6-1-1, likely in a position to have a win-in next round with Bug Delver, and for Scott Tompkins, a run at a top 8 berth over here as he falls to 5-2-1.
Yep. Those hymns so powerful, just depleting the resource.